Since League of Legends launched in 2009, there have been countless strategies and metas that in some way broke the game's balance. There is one specific meta in 2018 that is credited not only with ruining solo queue, but also professional play. This meta was so hated by the players, the casters, and the viewers at home that Riot was forced to intervene. Meanwhile in solo queue, this is what was happening. We'll be talking more about that later. This nightmare meta had such an impact that to this day, 7 years later, it is still considered by many to be the worst that the game has ever seen. It was so despised that Riot is still actively making changes to keep this strategy from ever returning. But it's so strong and so smart that it keeps coming back anyway. If you played League back then, you already know what I'm talking about. This video is going to cover the rise and fall of the funnel meta, and the legacy of one of the most toxic and hated metas of all time.
It's taking over pretty much every region right now, and it's really boring to watch.
I think funneling should be nerfed. Most pros think funneling should be nerfed. And from what I have seen, most players at home also think funneling should be nerfed.
They're clearly just about not letting G2 play this like really stupid funnel combo.
Oh, what's that? You don't like it?
This looks like it's a practice game. The observer's like, yeah, we'll just play fun stuff. No, this is the meta.
Like, why is that in the game?
The funnel meta is one of the most well-known in League's history, but for those who are lucky enough to have not lived through it, the strategy involved funneling as many resources as possible onto one single player. This was in the form of a laner and jungle duo, usually in the mid lane. One player played a carry, and the other a supportive champion. The carry would clear the jungle, taking all the golden experience. The support would stay in lane and hold the wave so that the carry could farm it instead. This meant that the carry would be getting double the amount of golden experience than they were actually balanced around having in a normal game of League. And this broke League's balance entirely. The funnel strategy overall was a disaster for professional play, and led to some of the most ridiculous competitive matches of all time, including a game that had 3 smites and no jungler. But before we talk about that, we need to look at where this meta even came from, who discovered it, and how. Well, if you look it up, you'll find all sorts of information saying that it started in 2018. This is partially true, but it goes back way further than that, to a different game mode entirely. Twisted Treeline 3v3. This was an old League of Legends game mode that was removed in 2019. For years, funneling was the meta in this game mode. One champion would take all of the resources from the top lane and the jungle, and it's really the origin of the funnel meta in League. Even on Summoner's Rift, parts of the funnel strategy had started to show up very early on. In Season 2 and 3, it was expected in competitive play that you'd see the mid laner take wolves or wraiths constantly, due to the lead that it would give in lane. Then of course, they'd start taking blue buff too. Jungling was truly a miserable experience. In 2017 though, a full year before the funnel strategy gained popularity, boosters on the Chinese servers were using it as their go-to strategy. You can even find posts from people around this time confused about what this strategy was, asking for explanations about how they lost so fast with seemingly no counterplay. These boosters relied on ranking accounts up quickly and reliably to make a living. So if there's an optimal way to rank up, they're going to find it. And that is exactly what happened. Master Yi and Taric would eventually become the faces of the funnel strategy, but on the Chinese server, it was originally played mostly with Kayle instead of Taric, using her ultimate to make Yi. Kayle would heal and buff Yi while building items like Ardent Censer and Knight's Vow. Ardent Censer, even on its own, was very strong at this point. It's worth noting that even though this was long before the World's 2018 incident, people knew Ardent was going to be a problem. But that's a story for a different video, which you should definitely check out. After collecting as much gold and experience as possible, Master Yi would just stat check anyone in his way. It didn't matter if it was one person or 5 people. No need for skill expression, no need to counter anything. Just right click and let the enormous experience and gold difference do all the work. There was really nothing that could be done by the enemy laner to deal with this when done properly. Once Kayle hit level 6, they would just walk on you under your tower and you would just lose. This is all based around solo queue though. It wasn't until 2018 that the funnel strategy really started to get popular and made its way into pro play. There were a ton of balance changes that Riot had recently made which contributed to this. Patch 8.10 nerfed early game junglers, reducing the experience they received. It also massively buffed Scuttlecrab, shout out to me. It now gave over 10 times the experience from level 1 and double the gold, both scaling even further throughout the game. This was a huge buff to funneling, because the team that was doing it was able to have complete control of Scuttlecrab as they had permanent lane priority. There was nothing that could be done to contest them, especially because early game junglers players had just been nerfed, so there was even less of a chance of successfully contesting the duo. This was also a time when challenging Smite still existed, and it was ridiculously strong. It basically made it impossible to lose most 1v1s. It dealt damage over time, it made the enemy deal less damage to you, it revealed them, it took their lunch money. There's not much that it didn't do. Patch 8.11 also nerfed AD carry as a role, brutally, to the point where it was normal to see champions like Yasuo, Vlad, or Heimerdinger instead. As a result, AD carries relied on either having massively increased income from funnel, or built mostly AP items, like Kai'Sa. All of these things happened leading up to the 2018 LCK summer split, and in the very first match, this is what happened.
LCK.
Here we go.
Summer 2018 meta. Reveal yourself.
Oh, there it is.
Oh boy, Nunu Karthus is coming
right
out
away.
on the blue side. They want Nunu Karthus. MVP has been playing it in solo queue. To me, the only reason you'd first pick the Nunu is take the Karthus, and we might have Tariq E against it. We're getting it.
It's happening.
We're popping off in the first game.
The first game of LCK 2018 summer, and we're going to get it right away. Karthus gets
Holy
locked
crap.
in. There is no secret as to what's going on now.
Let it waft over you. This is the new meta.
This is why I'm laughing. Nobody's in the mid lane. It's just like, it's 2v2 in the jungle right now.
The game progressed slowly, with both teams just taking jungle camps and clearing waves. Eventually, the two funnel duos encountered each other in the river, and it was time for some impressive gameplay.
We're going to have our first 2v2 fight. The Tariq ultimate comes down, and Bono is just going to get demolished. Tempt is going to go down too. Even burns his flash, unfortunately. Will be ulting here, but Max is going to survive. And now Ignar on the run. Really nowhere for him to go. Should be an easy 3-for-0 for MVP here.
Maybe you only need one. Maybe Master Yi is truly the chosen one. He's got 3.
Even though it was the first pro game of this strategy really being played, it was already becoming clear that it was difficult to deal with, and maybe not the most engaging to watch.
If you're one of the top teams, you're Kingzone watching this, you're KT, you're SKT. Now you know that both these teams are willing to play the Gouda cheese. They're willing to play the Camembert. They're willing to go for cheese. That's frustrating because you can lose a game to this if you lose a team fight and Master Yi gets 3 kills. Maybe you have to ban this until it filters through. Now you're going to have to put in some legit prep or waste a lot of bans on some of this stuff.
Here's the engage. You're not getting away from him this time. The Shen ultimate, not enough of a shield, and that's going to do it. They lost their damage. Where even is Karthus? He disappeared. He's not even here. He's up in the top lane, and that's it. You didn't even need the Ornn ultimate.
The funnel meta was out in full force. It was a strong strategy in pro play, but it wasn't required. It could be beaten with a lot of coordination and careful drafting. Riot was hesitant to make changes to funnel at the time because they wanted to see what players would do and how the meta would evolve. This is what Freak had to say.
We've seen things like Mordekaiser as a support plus Shyvana jungle, Tariq support plus Master Yi. We've seen Super Camille as well. A lot of crazy stuff is out there. And ultimately, everything is in flux. We don't know for sure what the best strategies are. We've seen teams run both, or one or the other, or neither, and it's up to what the teams think is best. Over the next few weeks, we'll see them start to solidify what they really do think works for them. I think we'll see some teams say, nope, we are a marksman team, and some teams say, nope, we are a mage team, or we are a Super Yi team, or whatever. I think that's really cool that teams can have different approaches to how they play the game.
Meanwhile, in solo queue, this nightmare was occurring. Less than 1 week after his initial comments on the funnel strategy, Freak released a patch rundown video. In it, he addressed the impact the funnel was having on solo queue specifically. According to him, Tariq and Yi were actually the highest win rate duo in League of all time.
Master Yi Tariq, from what I have heard, is the single highest duo in all of League of Legends. Master Yi Tariq's win rate is so high, it is higher than peak Xayah Rakan ever was. And we all know peak Xayah Rakan was real dumb and made every game about them. Master Yi Tariq is way better than any of that ever was. It's actually insane. And it's so strong, the game is about them as opposed to the rest of the game of League of Legends. And so, though I think funneling can be interesting and can be a cool pro strategy, and I'm actually okay with it being in my games in solo queue, it is so good it warps the game entirely, and I think is completely deserving of being nerfed.
Before talking about the nerfs, let me take a moment to introduce you to the sponsor of this video, who you've probably heard of, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game you can play, and is available now completely for free on PC, console, and mobile. There's over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships to choose from, anything from the biplanes of the 1920s to the fighter jets of today. War Thunder even has a new mobile version available on both iOS and Android, so you can play it wherever you go. They have detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sounds to provide the best experience possible. War Thunder has a community of over 70 million players, and best of all, you can join it completely for free using my download links below to sign up. If you make a new account or haven't played in 6 months, you'll also receive a bonus pack for PC or console players. You'll get 3 premium vehicles and a 50% experience and income boost, among other bonuses, like 100,000 Silver Lions. This offer is available for a limited time only, so there's never been a better time to try it out. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video, and let's jump back into it. The patch nerfed Master Yi, Taric, and Nunu. Some important context is that the patch rundown is from June 26th, and the funnel strategy had just made its appearance in Pro Play 2 weeks ago. Master Yi and Taric worked well together for mostly obvious reasons, like their ults. But on top of that, Taric basically turned Yi's Alpha Strike into a guaranteed point-and-click stun, which was clearly really engaging and a lot of fun to play against. Nunu, on the other hand, was usually paired with Karthus, because Nunu's Blood Boil also increased the target's ability power by 40% at max rank to a cap, which let Karthus do this. Since Funnel had appeared in competitive though, pro players began using all sorts of different duos. Lucian and Braum, Alistar and Kai'Sa, Taric and Kai'Sa, Braum and Kai'Sa, Nunu and Kai'Sa, Taliyah and Alistar were even being played and finding success. One match even had Faker on Taric against a Camille and Braum duo.
Here we go.
Oh god, we're actually doing it.
Okay, there we go. But the question is Blossom gonna play Yi, and is Faker gonna play Taric?
You know who is a much more famous Yi than Blossom?
Who's that?
Faker.
Faker looks pissed off.
In game 1, I said this will never happen because Faker wouldn't play the Taric. And it seems like Faker's gonna be playing the Taric.
Really?
Yes.
He's gonna play Taric in a professional game. Okay, there it is, no swaps. We're after 20 seconds, and Faker with heal on Taric in the mid lane. Taric versus Braum. Tell your friends to, they haven't watched League of Legends in a while, just come on in and just don't tell them anything. And it definitely does speak to the selflessness of Faker to say, hey, I'm known as the best player in the world. I'm gonna play Taric mid with heal exhaust.
Genji just on the Baron.
Now this is gonna be the end of it. No TP onto Tal, and they can just turn around. Car ultimate coming out here, but it's not enough damage in the front line. The Cosmic Radiance finally comes out. Blossom trying to do that damage, but he's targeting the Tom Kent. It's not going to be enough, and down he does go. The last knockup, 3 members go down. 4 members, actually, and that will be it.
The thing about Funnel is that strategically, it made sense. Even if you ignore the synergy between specific champions, like Taric and Yi, Funnel as a strategy was just smart. It made sense to double the resources of one carry instead of splitting it 2 ways. But Funnel did fundamentally break how the game was designed, because champions were balanced based on having around a certain amount of resources at each point in the game. That is, unless you're in solo queue, and your bot lane is 0-10. The strategy actually got even more creative, because during week 6 of the LCK Summer Split, MVP ran 3 Smites, 1 in each lane with 2 champions for utility, and they had no dedicated jungler.
Where's everyone going?
This is definitely looking weird and wonderful.
This puts the int in interesting.
Before the 3-minute mark, MVP had both their top and mid lane duos helping to invade and take enemy camps.
If one funnel is wrong, 2 funnels make a right.
I've decided that instead of talking about the strategy here, I'm just going to let it play out and think about it after the fact. My brain power is limited. It is the 7th game of the night.
7th game of the night, and we've got bot lane solo Karthus Smite teleport with support Trundle roaming around the jungle, and Max with a Smite Mordekaiser top lane 2v1 against Dinar.
By putting 2 players mid and 2 players top, they had priority in both lanes, and also put more gold onto their carries than the other team could. They actually went on to win that game. It was a really interesting innovation, and it is really cool to see even now. But as interesting as Funnel was, and as strong as it was, the strategy still wasn't being played in every game. It wasn't the only option available, and it wasn't unbeatable. Pro players could coordinate and defeat this strategy in a way that simply could not happen in solo queue. During Misfits vs Fnatic, for example, Misfits countered this strategy by invading early.
Was reckless in solo queue. And as you guys can see now, he might actually die. Nope, flashing away from that one. It's a very long level 1 fight.
It keeps on going. Top lane, there's some action as well, but nowhere near as important as what's going on down here. Hylissang pushed out towards
it's not over yet.
The side. They're just going to keep pushing forward. Here
goes flash.
There's the stun. Roxa flashes away. The dazzle not enough. Roxa will be the first to fall, and first blood goes to Misfits. But here comes the
flash.
Oh, he steals the red buff and gets level 2.
Okay, so the entire thing that happens here is when you're against this strategy where you want to force feed this mid laner with Smite, Caps in this case on the Kai'Sa, teams really want to invade early on to try and disrupt this early clear. All right.
Last split, about 33% of his team's damage. Maxwell topping out the jungle pool there, but going to be doing a lot more of that this time. Red buff here for Fnatic.
Oh, invade and fight.
Oh, the binding connects, and Caps is down. Fnatic have nothing left. Misfits once again stating their dominance over Fnatic.
We already said this 3 or 4 times. The entire goal with invading in for Misfits is to stop Caps from just taking jungle camps. And if you shut down Caps, there is no damage on Fnatic's side. Caps was still able to get his early farm, but Misfits showed, wait, you don't have a jungler. Our bot lane can just win. And they went bot lane. Hansama gets the first kill. Hansama gets the second kill by just Mickey landing a binding. And suddenly, the entire strategy of funnel gold onto Caps and he will take over the game and be the highest level, ruined.
Misfits went on to win that game, and in BBQ versus HLE, they used the exact same strategy.
Level 1 though, that's even louder. The axe is going to miss though. Without an undertow, it might be difficult, but Tempt is going to have to flash after the second one lands. That's a flash in. The Apprehend taken level 1, and that is a Soraka grabbing first blood.
Because one team didn't really have a jungler, the side lanes were also vulnerable to being ganked. Plus, if you managed to put the hyper carry behind, the game was basically over, because they were all the damage on the team. Some teams, though, like G2, did find a ton of success with it. After week 2 of the EU LCS, Perkz had a KDA of 49-1, while Jankos had a KDA of 50-1. The twist is that even though the strategy wasn't mandatory, and even though it could be beaten, everybody seemed to hate it, including Jankos.
Please just change the gold funneling strat so I don't need to play Braum again. But I think it's fun. I really think it's fun. Don't get me wrong, I love the fact that you can play everything everywhere you want, and I love the fact that sometimes you can go for the gold funneling instead of normal jungle. Yeah, it's just so boring sometimes when you're just sitting on stage and you're just like shielding people and like hitting minions, and I honestly don't know how support players can play supports.
And let's face it, no one really wants to watch the best mid laners in the world play Taric for Master Yi. This is why, only 2 weeks after Freak's comments about waiting to see how the meta would evolve, Riot Meddler made a post addressing the funnel strategy, because the feedback around it was so bad. In the post, Meddler said that gold funneling simply made lanes play out in an uninteractive way. Plus, putting 2 income streams, one from the lane and one from the jungle, onto a single champion was going to cause even bigger issues with balance. At the 15-minute mark, a champion that was funneling would already have about 50% more gold than the enemy laner. He went on to say that they couldn't find a fix that was low on disruption to normal jungle gameplay, while still meeting their design values on intuitiveness and clarity. Even though they couldn't find a good solution, they thought funnel was too much of an issue, and they were going to go ahead with a temporary solution anyway, that Meddler called a pretty ugly one. When a Riot employee is telling you that they're going to implement a change that even they call ugly and heavy-handed, you know you're about to witness a circus. The band-aid fix was to heavily reduce the gold received from lane minions if you had a jungle item and also the most gold on your team. This is what Freak had to say about it during the patch rundown 1 week later.
This is going to be a contentious change, but I want to bring up several topics here, okay? Let's talk about 1. Should funneling be nerfed? Now, I think yes. You might have a different opinion, but I think funneling should be nerfed. in an appeal to authority, most pros think funneling should be nerfed, and from what I have seen, most players at home also think funneling should be nerfed. I think the majority of the league base is saying, hey, we don't find this fun, we don't find this interesting, we don't want funneling to be a thing anymore. So I think the idea of, hey, let's find a way to nerf funneling is, for most people, at least for the majority, removing it is a good thing.
The most interesting thing about the funnel strategy and what Riot was trying to do is that they weren't trying to balance it. They were trying to remove it. And they were doing this not because it was always played or because it was always the best strategy. It was being removed because it wasn't fun to watch, it wasn't engaging to play, and it wasn't even interesting to cast. Funnel wasn't allowed to exist because it wasn't how they wanted the game to be played. And to be fair, most of the league community didn't want it either. To say that the nerf to remove funnel was ugly is a bit of an understatement.
Is this the right nerf? Because you're trying to have as little fallout, as little knock-on effects as possible. You want to be as least painful as you can to the rest of the game. So how do you do that while still nerfing funneling? This was the best idea that it felt like they could come up with. If you have a better idea, I'm sure they would love to hear it. Leave comments in the video, leave comments in the patch notes, put it on, Meddler's Quick Thoughts that he puts out every couple of days. I'm sure they would love to have a better solution out there that is not painful to the game. But this was probably the least painful one they came up with, and it's the least painful one that I can think of as well.
The nerf that Freak was referring to was the addition of the Monster Hunter passive for the jungle items. If you had a jungle item and also the most gold on your team, you received 10 less gold for killing lane minions.
Now, I do want to point out, though, that if you have the most gold on your team, losing 60 gold per minion wave is a lot. That is a substantial amount of gold lost. Like 60 gold per wave is what you get just from passive gold generation. Like imagine this change said, if you're funneling, passive gold generation turns off. Like that feels insane on paper. And yet it's actually the same change here as long as you're last hitting.
This change was really bad for junglers of all kinds, especially carry junglers. There is no worse feeling in League than being forced to jungle and then also having 3 losing lanes. In this case, you're basically guaranteed to have the most gold on your team. And because your laners are losing, you'll often have to hold or clear waves for them. As a jungler, it's part of the job. This means that if you were playing your role correctly, you could actually be punished by this mechanic for doing the right thing. You could be punished for playing well. Not only would you already be more likely to lose the game because your teammates were performing badly, you were also getting less gold to carry with. It's a lose-lose situation. If you chose to not collect the gold in a lane, then that gold is completely wasted. If you did collect the gold, you were trading your time and therefore your pressure on the map for a very low amount of resources. But did Riot's Band-Aid fix have the intended effect? Did it remove funneling as a viable strategy?
It's been a wild ride these past few weeks, watching teams around the world try different variations of funnels. And I think pros and fans will all agree, funneling's actually kind of lame. So patch 8.14, Riot introduced a Band-Aid nerf to curb the playstyle, targeting Hunter's Machete and Hunter's Talisman that reduce the amount of gold you earn from killing lane minions if you have the most gold on your team while wielding one of those items. Now here is a gold graph from week 3 of the North American LCS 100 Thieves versus Clutch game. The green line is the funnel. That is Cody's son.
As you can see by the gold chart, yeah, it worked. This was the end of funnel in pro play. For now. We'll get to that soon. There's more to this story, and it's probably not what you expect. In Riot's effort to remove funnel, they may have accidentally caused the rise of a certain player, with a very interesting playstyle. The Monster Hunter passive went through a lot of changes and variations over time, and I do mean a lot. It was initially removed in patch 8.23. Riot said that it was no longer needed because they were making changes that were intended to mitigate the gold funnel strategy. As a result, it wasn't needed anymore. These changes included a rework of the bounty system and the introduction of turret plating. There is one specific player who became known for his playstyle which used these two mechanics very well. And I think you already know who it is.
There are two Demon Kings in League of Legends. The one who dies all the time and the one who wins everything. And the one who dies all the time just won the 1v1.
It's also, he misses Q. Faker, misses the last Q, but Boz just beats him. That's so much damage from this champion.
All I'm going to say is bounty system. The bounty system is completely broken, and I abuse it every single game. So the bounty system is ruthless when it comes to kills. You're gonna get 1500 gold from kills, and then you die once and you give back 1k gold. And then we're moving on to platings and gold items. These two, getting cool and taking platings, is the single best way to make money. It's crazy. You know you can go a game getting 15 platings for yourself. You can get that's 2,600 gold. You can get 2,600 gold worth of platings, and your bounty wouldn't move an inch.
Funny enough, 2 months later, in patch 9.1, Riot reintroduced the Monster Hunter passive anyway. And the reason they brought it back was again to counter gold funneling, because once the passive was removed, it immediately started gaining popularity in solo queue.
Monster Hunter is back. I remember last time we talked about this, like the question was, okay, can you come up with a better if statement for Monster Hunter? This is fairly unintrusive for the vast majority of jungle games. This is a pretty good if statement. I think it certainly kills funneling.
For the sake of solo queue alone, Riot has had to make change after change to the Monster Hunter passive to keep funneling out of the game. Even now, a variation of this passive still exists, and players still occasionally complain about this strategy showing up in solo queue. Taric and Master Yi in particular seem to come up often in these discussions, due to how easy it is to utilize and how much people struggle to counter it in uncoordinated solo queue games. So, funneling came back in solo queue, but what about pro play? Well, in the 2019 LEC Spring Finals,
it now says
this is a pike! We got a pike, let's go! Wait, that's a smite on perks. I think they might be doing a funnel, ladies and gentlemen.
What? How is that going to work with this composition? And a funnel comp. Okay, now, let's step back. It's been a long time since we have seen funnel comp.
the fact that they gave Cold the Rek'Sai, but he doesn't get to just power bomb.
All right, there's an early flash from Perks already, but look at the turnaround damage. Mickey's going low, defensive flash. Mickey survives. First blood. This type of funnel composition. Now there's a lot of damage under caps. The crescendo comes down from Patrick, but there's no follow-up. There's nothing more to do. G2 get yet another 5-0-5. Perks is on a rampage, and I have a quick stat for you. When G2 Esports ran funnel comps in summer of 2018, they went undefeated 5-0. In the finals of spring, they are looking to continue that streak 6-0. At 24.5 minutes, G2 Esports funnel their way to victory.
G2 had once again put Jankos on a support champion and added another win to their flawless funnel record. People were excited to see funnel in this case, because it was used as a counter to the Taric and Sona comp, so it was the lesser of two evils. Plus, it was just exciting because no one expected it. Overall though, the player base does not look kindly upon the funnel strategy, and I think that this thread really puts into perspective just how hated it is. It asked what people thought was League's equivalent to Brigitte from Overwatch, and the top comment was the funnel meta. And it actually makes sense. Brigitte famously broke Overwatch and Blizzard had to intervene. They made fundamental changes to how the game worked, resulting in the introduction of the 2-2-2 role lock. This is similar to how funnel forced Riot to introduce the Monster Hunter passive, to rework the bounty system, and even introduce tower plates. But funnel is a bit of an odd case, because Brigitte was a character that was designed and added to the game intentionally. Somehow. In the case of funnel, it came about naturally. It had started on Twisted Treeline and was first used in 5v5 by boosters. But very quickly, everyone grew to hate it, including players, and Riot was forced to act. Riot historically does receive a lot of criticism for enforcing a meta, but in this case, it was welcomed by the community. I think it's a shame that this meta was often so uninteresting to watch. Seeing 3 smites on a team, for example, was really unexpected, and it's nice to see weird strategies once in a while. The final twist about the funnel strategy is that a version of funnel has been in the meta for a very long time. The meta that Riot often does enforce. The support role on its own is kind of a form of funnel that's in basically every game. The entire role is built for this purpose with items designed around it. One player is choosing to not collect resources so that another player can. This is funneling. The difference is that in bot lane, one champion is receiving golden experience from one source, the lane. What was happening with the funnel strategy is that one champion would be receiving all of the golden experience from two different sources, the lane and the jungle. With that said, you could even consider more modern strategies like Janna top with Smite to also be a form of funneling. The point of the strategy isn't to funnel the gold to your jungler, but it's still free farm for whoever can take it. And with that, we have covered the legacy of one of the most hated metas in League's history. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the funnel strategy? Do you think that it's for the best that Riot removed it, and do you think that they should continue to keep it out of the meta? Or would you actually like to see it return? And what meta would you like me to cover next? Let me know down below. Before finishing up, thanks again to this video's sponsor, War Thunder. It's available for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. You can check it out and take advantage of the bonus pack by using either of my links in the description or the pinned comment. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for supporting the channel. Every time I upload a video of me yapping about League, it blows my mind how much support I get. Even with a lot of that support being about how I sound like a robot. Firm. I just wanted to say how grateful I am that I get to make content like this. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
The